I really put this whole story together really the last 6 months,
Wow.
where I actually took it from beginning to today, where it all the missing pieces that I've been looking for, I have found. And so I understand the story, and understanding the story has really accelerated my healing.
Oh, there you go.
So what happened is, my abuse started, and I'll show you the picture of when it
Okay.
started.
Okay.
So this is me
Oh my goodness.
at about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old.
Wow.
And the reason why this picture was so significant is because this is when it really started.
Ah,
So it's always been a part of my life.
it's amazing to me if somebody looks at a picture of a little girl like this, that they could think, let's do harm.
Right?
Right. It's just, it's heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's heartbreaking because it even brings tears to my eyes, because I think of who I was then,
Mhm.
and it did. It completely changed the direction of my life.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is, I don't want to say it was worth going through,
No, I know what you're going to say.
but the healing that I've done, the growing that I've done, and the ability to help other people,
Right.
I would go through it again
Right. Right.
to help others.
And I'm sure that there's going to be people that see this that aren't going to understand that
Right.
until they begin to heal.
Right.
And want to help someone else through.
Right.
Like, I've always said, and I think I've always said to you, that some of the things we go through, other people cannot imagine.
No.
But if we can help one person, if we can do good with that, then we really have survived, and we
Correct.
really have healed.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Because
So-
with every person that you help, there is an absolute measure of healing for yourself.
100%.
When I was doing the childhood abuse healing workshop, before we would prepare for the 6-week class, it was intense, and it was a lot of healing, and you're usually dealing with something new as you go into it, but it's amazing. It really is. It's been quite a journey, I will say.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
That's okay.
It's okay. We want to get to the story and how you got to the work. The
Where
workshops will come. Yeah.
Right. So my abuse, what I realize now, looking back, a lot of it was my brother, and it was physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. That I know of. I don't believe I had any sexual abuse. I don't have any repressed memories that I have come up or anything. And with my parents, with my father, it was more abandonment, because he either would literally, and I mean physically, hide when my brother would act up, or he would have a good buzz going.
So either way, he was hiding.
He was hiding. My mother, was definitely verbal and emotional abuse. There was some physical abuse as well. And so anyway, it started back when I was probably about 4. At the time I didn't understand,
No.
right? I don't understand what's going on. I just remember feeling like it's just so unfair every time something would happen. And because it started so young, I learned to kind of just shut down. And I can remember my safe place when I was a child was my bedroom, because I could shut the door, and what I would do is I would create my own world. And I had complete control of that time. And so when I was feeling scared or whatever, I would run to my room. The problem was, a lot of times the abusers would come in and invade that space.
Sure.
And so I won't get into a lot of the details about the abuse. I'll bring up maybe some stories that'll help you understand my mindset, and then how I kind of work through that. But my brother, he was an unhappy person. He started doing drugs very young, when he was 13.
Oh my.
Yeah. And we're not talking marijuana. We're talking very heavy duty drugs.
Okay.
So he had some stuff going on. He was adopted. And so looking back, there must have been some kind of mental illness that he wasn't addressing, but we didn't know how to address.
Right. And so many years ago, I mean, we've talked about experiences we've had with, friends and people that we saw that were supposedly in treatment, but they didn't know what they know today.
Right.
How to treat that kind
Correct.
of thing. So.
The other thing that was, and I'll bring this up now, that's really critical, is there wasn't protection for children then either.
No.
There were no laws protecting children really like there is today until the 1980s.
Wow.
So, and mental health as well. You
Mm.
know, oh, you were hyper or whatever. You were a troubled child. They never addressed that.
No.
And my parents didn't know what to do. And our family didn't even know about this.
Mhm.
You know, they knew my brother was a troubled person, but they didn't understand the depth of it. So there was a lot of secrecy.
Right. So he's self-medicating and no
He's-
one understands.
And which makes him worse and more unstable.
Right.
And so he would come home, you know, buzzed on something and just be in a bad mood and ask me a question. And if I didn't answer it right, he would attack me.
Mm.
And one of the biggest ones that stuck out, that there was a moment where I thought, oh, it's really obvious that no one's going to protect me anymore. So I got to do it myself. And this is a story I will share. And I was probably about 10 or 11. And my parents had another couple over, that they're friends, and they were sitting in the family room, and they were just visiting and stuff. And I came home and I went out there to sit with them because I love these people. And we were visiting, and my brother came home and he walked in the door, and I could tell just by the look. And so I just paid attention to what everybody else was doing. And he came in and he sat down and he looked at me and he said, "What day is it today?" And of course, being a 10-year-old, I'm like, "What?" And I got up to walk away because I was like, I am not dealing with this. He jumped over the couch, chased after me, dropped me to the ground, sat on me, choked me until I told him what day it was.
Literally hands around your throat.
Literally choking me.
And your parents?
Good question. When all was said and done and he stood up, I looked up and they were all just sitting there watching this whole thing.
All of them, including the guests.
All of them. And they just stood there, or they just sat there, and I stood there and I'm like, anybody going to do anything?
Right. Right.
It was clear no one was going to do a thing. And they kind of went back to talking, and I went to my room.
Did it make you feel like this behavior was normal?
It did. Well, yes and no. That's a good question, because it felt normal because it was my normal.
Correct.
But I knew it wasn't normal.
But you knew something was wrong.
I knew something. I just didn't know the depth of it.
What it was.
And my thing, and it still kind of sticks in my head, the thought that comes in my head is, this isn't fair. What's going on? Why are you okay with this?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you okay?
Were you, this may not even be the right question, and so I apologize, but were you ever like, did he threaten, you can't talk about it? I mean, was
No.
there any of that? There was
No.
none of that. You just knew
question.
not to.
And that is a great question, because that comes up to today
Correct.
of my secrecy about it. And the only thing that comes to mind is shame. Shame is what kept my mouth shut, and my belief system about me and my value.
Mm.
And then you top it with some shame, and it's a perfect storm for keeping your mouth shut.
Do you know, someone told me once, I was dealing with something that certainly not at this level, but it was a priest, and he said to me, "You are judging that little girl with an adult brain.
Yes.
Like you should have known, you should have done."
Yes.
And is that part of the healing process, to
Yes.
understand that was a little girl who couldn't have done?
That was the game changer for me.
Mm.
That was a game changer. And that's what's happened over the last 6 months, is I'm realizing that little girl was alone and dealing with this, with her little mind. She was alone. She was afraid. She didn't have anybody to turn to. There wasn't a safe adult. I didn't have anybody in school help me. I didn't have parents, friends. I mean, because they didn't know. And so.
Right. Well, if you feel like if you can't trust the people in your own home, how do you trust anybody outside of that?
Right. And I've said for a long time, it's been my foundation that was so shaken up and never, laid right, I guess is the best way to put it, to build something on it, because it was so broken. I can remember having a visual of that in my life of, yes, that was
about that.
That was
That's
really interesting. That's very interesting. So it was probably about 15 plus years ago. And I was going through a growth spurt, and I was a mess, and I don't think you and I knew each other then. I think it was before you and I met. And I was sitting there, and it was just like God gave me this vision that my foundation was completely screwed up. And I visioned a house that was crooked, it couldn't stand upright. And the foundation, not only was it cracked, it was like pieces were lifting up, and there was actually weeds growing through it.
Oh my gosh, that's a vision.
How bad my foundation was. I could see it. And I felt like he's saying, we're going to tear this baby up and we are going to lay a new foundation. And I felt like I went through hell going through that.